everybody. I'm Peter Trippi. I'm editor-in-chief of Art Connoisseur Magazine in New York. Delighted to be gathering with kindred spirits yet again. This is one of the fun aspects of my job, is to connect with artists and dealers and educators in the art world to talk about issues of common concern. I'm delighted to be joined yet again today by Katie Whipple, a great artist based in New York. There she is waving. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Peter. Great to be with you.
We're having fun with this, aren't we? This is our shared journey.
Yeah, it's been great. What a joyful thing to look forward to during the long days of quarantine.
These are long days, absolutely. We're going to lighten them up a bit, I think. Basically, just to remind everyone that we thought it's always good to connect with colleagues and find out what's going on with them, but especially in this very strange season, it's wise to hear what's on people's minds when it comes to issues of not just personal concern, but shared concern. And we'll talk more about that shortly. Let me begin just by introducing myself, and then Katie will say a few words about herself, and we'll go around the table and hear from the others. I'm Peter Trippi, as I mentioned before. I edit the magazine Fine Art Connoisseur. I'm also an independent curator of exhibitions, primarily to do with 19th century European art. Katie.
I'm Katie Whipple. I am a painter, mostly of flowers. So you can see behind me, I'm in my studio. I also teach at the Grand Central Atelier, as well as chair the development committee there.
Great. Zoe.
Hi, my name is Zoe Dufour. I'm a primarily figurative sculptor, and I studied in New York at Grand Central Atelier. I teach there occasionally, and right now I'm based in Northern California.
Great, welcome. Cesar.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am César Meza. I'm from Mexico. I'm a painter who most of the time works with figurative work and drawing and painting primarily. I'm also a student. I've been a part-time student at Grand Central Atelier in New York City for maybe about 2 years now. So yeah, I'm still forming myself, but well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Glad you're here. And finally, but not least but not last, is Betty.
Hi, Betty Standish. I'm a program director at Wethersfield Academy for the Arts in Wethersfield, Connecticut. We're halfway between Boston and New York, and we have a wonderful little facility that promotes the classical arts. And we've had Katie teach a workshop with us, and many other fine artists from New York, Boston, and around the country. So that's the short of it.
Welcome. We'll hear more about your activities soon. Basically, I just want to remind everyone of some of the key questions that we had posed to the panelists before they gathered with us here. I'm just going to review them, and we can keep these in mind as we move through the hour. How are things going for you and your colleagues during the pandemic? Please provide specific examples of some frustrations and successes. What do you see on the horizon for you, your activities, and the field of contemporary realism next month, 3 months from now, and next year? And finally, how can the people watching this program make a difference to that future now? We mean not only donations to worthy nonprofits, but also direct support of what you do and what your colleagues do. So this is very much rooted in our times. This conversation would be very different in flavor 6 months ago. And I want to thank Katie for making the suggestion that we pull this together pretty quickly. You know, we've done it pretty fast, and I appreciate all of you jumping right in so that we could share ideas. So Dale, who's our wonderful technician from Streamline Publishing, is on the call, and I think that he is going to now pop up the slide deck, which we've all looked at. There it goes. That's great. We begin with Zoe's slides, and she'll tell us a bit more about what we're seeing here. Take it away.
Thanks, Peter. You can move to the next slide. This is Ossier. It was a piece I made for a show that Katie curated, Flora Legion. And it was also kind of a test piece for some ceramic techniques that I've started learning recently, and it's the largest scale ceramic piece that I've made to date. And it gave me the opportunity to play with a lot of things that are a little bit more difficult when I was working in clay, but would have to mold and into a different material. So when I'm working with ceramic as the end medium, I get to play a lot more with delicate textures and sort of fineness, thinness of certain sculpture that just wouldn't be possible or wouldn't survive a molding process. And so there's something really gratifying to me about the ceramic sculpture where you're really sculpting your end result, where normally it goes through so many mutations as you cast the piece. You sort of, it feels to me normally going through the casting process like I'm ending up with a different piece than I sculpted, which is honestly a little emotionally difficult. So the ceramic process is one that I find I prefer now. And I've been sort of playing with connecting, I guess, human likeness with natural elements, and in a really basic way, just trying to look for connection to nature, which I feel like we've, sort of been removed from in a broad sense in general society. You can go to the next slide now. This is a life-size portrait, and it was done with Stan Procopenko, who runs skill-based like anatomy, drawing, painting, figurative, sort of online school. Now it's sort of gone through mutations. He has a really great YouTube page that I know a lot of representational artists use heavily. He's a great resource, and I feel really lucky to have been able to work with him. But this is created during a tutorial I filmed with him, and then I cast it into hydrocal, and is one of my few pieces I've actually finished that's not ceramic, and so it's one that I like to show. Go to the next slide. This is another ceramic experiment. So this is in porcelain, and I was just curious about finishing porcelain. It's one of the finest clays you can use, and if you work with it well, you can actually get it so thin it can be translucent, and just the surface that's possible with porcelain is really unique. And so it's a clay that I'd like to play with more, but it's also it's really temperamental, and it's one of the hardest materials I've worked with before. And so I don't, when the next time is, I'll work in it again, but I do love the finished look. You can go to the next slide. This is a painting by a friend, Kevin Mueller. His work I just think is so beautiful. He has this really moody atmospheric quality in a lot of his paintings that I just find incredibly compelling. This is a painting of his partner Maisie, and it's just a gorgeous piece. And then we could go to the following slide. This is a painting by another friend, Emily Lee. This was done in her backyard, I believe, while she was in quarantine. And she's in Southern California, and her garden is just amazing. And it's been really nice. She has a great social media presence. It's been really nice to be able to follow along with her on her process of painting these, and just sort of like a nice virtual escape from, where I am every day, to be taken along with her process and see her space. That's it for me.
Thank you. That's great, Zoe. I appreciate that. Over to Cesar.
Okay, let's start with the first slide. Okay, so this painting, it's currently on the easel, actually. I'm working from life, so I managed to have a model holding for me for this painting during these difficult times. It was, let's say that it was a little bit delicate to bring the subject of working from life, because nowadays, we all have to be very careful with these activities, especially these ones that involves two persons in the same studio at the same time and working together. But fortunately, there are a lot of ways to make that happen. And one of the aspects of that is just to remain very patient with the other. In this case, for me, towards the model, like listening to her and what are her concerns, and also bringing a very safe environment for her and other models that I'm currently working with. So this painting in particular, I'm trying to describe not only, and I'm not gonna try to define the technical aspects of it just right now, but often I'm thinking about the importance of contemplation and also the awe that we get when we experience things directly when we are in nature, and that means outdoors. But also trying to combine those two subjects, the figure and also like a kind of a conception of nature. It's nothing new, but it's also one of the most difficult things to manage, and that is to, for an instance, to bring it to a success compositionally, and also trying to define some sort of poetry with it. And that's what I'm trying to aim with this painting, which I have to say, for the composition in the background, the landscape, it's from imagination. So I have had to make some studies, obviously trying to be or remain logic with the laws of light and physicality of nature. And it's very complex, but it's also very fun to do it because, well, I'm glad that it's not the first time to do that, but if so, it would have been just so exciting because you have been in those places in different situations, and I'm trying to say like in the forest or in the fields, walking around, etc. So you vaguely recognize what you're trying to express. So, well, right now I already did the studies, and I'm gonna start working on the piece and to figure it out if it's good or not, what I have chosen for the composition, which is right behind me. I mean, you can see the painting right over there. And I had to wait until the previous layers dried up, so I wouldn't like mess the figure. This is only the second layer of color, so I might hire the model again for one more time, one more session. And then, but that's gonna be after the landscape or the rest of the composition is done, so I can make different changes or not. I mean, who knows? Probably I'm gonna scrap off a lot of things because that's one of the things that I like to do. I like to challenge myself to not feel comfortable all the time when I'm working and to pursue something more interesting perhaps or more developed. Well, yeah, can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so this and the next study are kind of like, okay, it's not a series. First of all, I normally don't work thinking about series because I think that evokes an irregularity in my schedule when I'm working, or even my philosophy. I don't like to think that any single painting or drawing is attached to some sort of compiling definition with a different amount of works. But in these two cases, well, this and the other study were very fun, in particularly this one, just because these studies are work from imagination, and I mean all of it. So initially, initially I worked with a model, but I had only like 20 minutes, just one pose. And I did like a very abstract drawing of it. And then after that, as a game maybe, and also trying to find some sort of things to talk about the observation and the understanding of distractions also, because when you are in front of a figure, you have to remain very concentrated in what you are trying to do and what you are observing. But also with this study, I was practically with only 4 shapes, 2 blocks of dark and light masses, and then I had to figure out the structure of the figure, the tangible explanation or representation of the figure. And then I did a bunch of studies in drawing, and then I did an crochet in painting. I did everything like a glissé. On top of the glissé, I started doing some color studies also, just to separate the initial idea and trying to understand the palette that I was gonna be using for the painting. So this is a small study. It's about 15 by 17 or something like that. I vaguely remember, but it's just an opportunity for me to talk about the deeper meaning of nature and how can we get an essential harmony between this imaginative figure and also something that is brought from life. So for the next paintings, those are going to be so large. I mean, probably it's going to be the largest paintings that I've done so far. So it's going to be maybe, I'm thinking, because I only bought the panels and I'm preparing them, so I'm hoping next month starting to work in this. It's gonna be bigger than 4 by 6 foot, maybe. So it's not that big, maybe. I know there are a lot of artists that work bigger than that, but for me, it's like a good challenge. So yeah, let's go to the next slide, please. And this is the other study that I was telling you about. And also, one of the important things that I have to understand, and now this is a more technical issue, is that when I started thinking about this composition in the last one, I was trying to encounter some sort of thoughts that were clear enough to make me portray even a full figure or just like a 3/4 figure, and how to even interpret that on the surface. So it was a tough decision, and I'm not saying that this exact composition that you are looking at right now, it's gonna be the one that I've been painting like in full scale. No, and probably it's gonna change a little, but okay, I mentioned that it was an experiment, but it was more than that, because every day that I was working on these studies, I understood so much about the complications of just constructing an image, and how this instantly evokes something. And I have to be very careful with that, because first of all, I just like to paint, and sometimes I don't like to be distracted with the topic or the language or what that painting or drawing is gonna say. I think sometimes, and I'm not saying that this is a general situation, but to me, when I have clear objectives of what I want, it allows me to go much further and also to change the progressive future of that piece. So yeah, hopefully next month I'm gonna be showing in my social media and also web page the progress of these paintings. Let's go for the next slide, please. And okay, this is portrait drawing I did of my mother last year during the summer. To talk about drawing for me is not only to talk about the roots of painting and most of the art disciplines that we know these days, that it consists of moments of profound appreciation, and also how can we be able to understand the nature of different people that is in front of us. Obviously, it means so much more than that because it's my mother and I love her. But it was also the second portrait I did of her. But this is maybe the one that I have liked the most yet, because maybe trying to hold on a strong love for her allowed me to also be very specific and yet remain very abstract with the shapes in the drawing. So I tried to be a little bit moody, you know, with gray, of course, just to let the expression to become fresh and also a little bit of alive. That's one of the goals that we are trying to achieve. Like our works need to be breathing, and they have to have a soul. So it means more than personal feelings from me to my mom, and also like a little bit of accomplishment in this drawing, because I've done a lot of drawings of different people, but sometimes when you know the person you are portraying, it involves a lot of experiences that you have had with this person. So, okay, let's go to the next slide. And this is a self-portrait, as you can see, and it's also a work that is currently in progress. Right now, what you are looking at is, well, I'm trying to create some sort of harmony within the composition, the arrangement of the objects that I have behind me, what those objects or pictures mean to me. It's not only pictures of different old masters, it's also some of my sketches that I've done in the past month and last year. And also, and very importantly, I think there are 2 letters that I wrote to myself that are in the left corner of the painting, the upper left corner. These letters are reflections and meditations about what I do and why I do it the way I do it, or trying to find some sort of serenity, especially during these times, because I started this painting maybe a month and a half ago. I started doing the drawing of the self-portrait, and then I transferred it to start the painting. So it has been a wild ride, I have to say, because well, the self-appreciation that I have of myself, because first of all, I recognize all my mistakes, and I think that's what it feels or I hope it feels in my work, because I like to be mistaken a lot. That's one of the things that makes me grow, and I'm not trying to get like the right brushstroke at the first try. If anything, I mentioned something of scrapping off the surface of the paintings. I did with this particular painting twice. That I mean, I scrapped it off. I didn't care about if I had something good on it. Trying to find a relationship between the meaning of the painting and also the technicality of it. It needs to have some sort of balance to me. And one of the best things that I experienced with this, and it's not the first time that I experienced this, but when you discovered that you are left alone with your own thoughts in a very closed environment, and when you are not in contact with other people, that gave me surprisingly an attentive appreciation of what I was doing and what I am doing still. So it makes me be more patient. Not that I wasn't before. I consider myself very patient, and I'm always trying to be more, even more. But yeah. So with this self-portrait painting, I'm just trying to recognize where I am and where I am at this moment. So like I said, I'm trying to be very honest and sincere with what I'm showing. And I hope I don't mess this painting up later. But okay, so this is me. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very helpful. You've raised lots of interesting ideas. Thank you. Betty, over to you.
Hi. Yes.
We suddenly are on someone's desktop. Oh, okay.
That was my desktop.
Okay. There we go.
All
Great.
right.
Okay.
Yes. Well, thank you, Peter and Katie, for inviting me. This is quite an honor. Yeah, so let's start with, these are some of our instructors at the Academy. Oh dear, where did I just go? I think I just lost my notes. Here it is. Catherine Engberg, began teaching at the Wethersfield Academy for the Arts in the fall of 2016. We needed a portrait and figure drawing instructor at the time, and her work just stood out for us. Katie possesses an admirable way of calmly assuring students of their own abilities to achieve the process she is teaching. After 2 years, that 2-hour ride up to Wethersfield to teach 2 classes and a 2-hour ride back to Queens was just too much. But I applaud her for doing it for 2 years. So I encouraged her to teach multi-day workshops, and now she comes up 2 or 3 times a year to teach portrait painting. She has at this point a following who loves her. For artists who have a keen ability to teach a room full of eager art beavers, that's what I call them, workshops can be quite profitable. So Katie pointed me to a show of John Singer Sargent's drawings at the Morgan last year. It was breathtaking, how he defined facial features and the essential period personalities with the quickest of charcoal lines. So now Katie sells her paintings promptly after finishing her portraits. Whether they're like full portrait oil paintings or these portrait sketches like this one you see in front of you. This painting, by the way, is sold. She's coming to Wethersfield at the end of July to teach a portrait sketch and oils workshop. And we'll move on to Paul. Next. Paul Batch taught landscape painting with us for a season, enjoying a room full of most interesting personalities that make up landscape painters. Paul painted at the University of Hartford's art school and found his post-degree studies of artists such as George Ennis and Fred Cummings and Edward Seago very much affected his brushwork. His brushwork is absolutely exquisite. I had originally pegged Paul as a tonalist, but when I saw this high chroma painting, I knew this was the one I had to show you all. Maybe this is what a pandemic does to you with the cute kiddos running around the house, but it's just wonderful what he did here. He'll be teaching a landscape workshop in September with us. Next. This is Veronique Fournier who has taken almost all the drawing and painting classes and workshops with us. She's now a class instructor several times a week. This was paused by the pandemic, but she teaches the Bardic drawing class, which is where it all begins. Having taken all the color mixing courses we have offered, she also teaches the beginning oil painting classes, which is mostly in still life. The value of studying master copies is also offered to students to begin to understand how the masters accomplish their techniques. Veronique is not afraid of challenges, having climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. She continues drawing bardic plates for practice, learning painting methods and styles in the many workshops that we offer. Next. Okay, so this is Mara Safara. The artwork of Mara refers to our human understanding of the other forms of life and melds a distinct uniqueness of each creature with the subtle clues to their personalities. Her art engages in a fantasy world in which colors, sometimes textures, and a quiet humor dominating the art. This Egyptian cat is not what we assume of cat imagery. I think of the happy cat, the lucky cat that goes like this all the time at you. But this is specific. This is referential and has a solid presence, which changes as our position to it and the light source changes around it. So Mara says, my artwork focuses on our interactions with the humans on Earth and all its beings. The objective is to allow the viewer to relate the image in a personal way, to be charmed by nature the way I have interpreted it. Mara is a supporter of the Academy, takes classes, and will be teaching again after the pandemic. Next. So this is Jeremiah Patterson. He's awesome. This watercolor has been on our walls for a very long time as an example of still life painting, embodying all the principles we want to teach at the Academy. Jeremiah has shown widely, he lives in Massachusetts, Stockbridge, I think it is. And he comes down to teach at the University of Hartford's Art School. He has shown across the country, internationally. He teaches workshops with us, but does fun things like leading small groups to Italy each summer to paint with his co-conspirator, Fred Wessel. Does anybody know Fred Wessel? Oh yeah, oh yeah. So they teach landscape painting and watercolor in these lovely environments, but also egg tempera, silver point drawing, and other Renaissance methods and techniques. Most of these techniques are not common anymore, as you have to be willing to take on demanding needs of these mediums. For instance, the subtle differences between the teachings in egg tempera by various instructors are valuable as long as you practice both to know which one works best for you. So you take the best from everything that you learned. As far as contemporary realism, Jeremiah was taught this way of painting by his father and his father's father, and he goes back 5 generations. So this is like practically in his DNA. Next. So the Academy reaches those interested in beginning their study in the classical approach. There is a market, we find, to learning within the 6-week class format in the studio with a knowledgeable instructor building skill sets until they're ready to take workshops in what I would call master level learning methods. Next. So we have a call to artists right now for a fine art competition, and we began planning this last fall before realizing the pandemic was to happen. And somehow the theme challenge of a sense of place is more poignant now than ever. I hear that there's like pandemic art being done, although I haven't seen it. It will be interesting to see what comes in. Our original intent was for artists to pay attention to a narrative of a painting. When you examine paintings of the masters, you have to wonder at the specifiers around the central focus. The learning is, the setting is often the additional distinguishers of these paintings. I have a panel discussion with several curators to delve into this. Early registration for the competition is June 30th. Although you can register until August 30th. Then there is another month before the painting is due, hopefully dried and varnished. When accepted into the show, the paintings will be in a gallery for 2 weeks, available for public purchase and eligible for $5,000 worth of prizes. Peter will be one of our adjudicators. Our intent is to challenge and support artists in their endeavors, and we hope you will consider this effort. It definitely brings up the level of visual dialogue and public discourse. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's some more details. In fact, this will all be present on the recording, Betty. So all of this is going to go out with the program, all right? I think that probably let's linger here for half a minute, Dale, on this screen so that people have it to read. If the rest of you could unmute, that would be great, because we're going to chat now. Thank you. That's really helpful. I'm full of questions, but I'm going to let Katie take a shot first if she wishes. No pressure.
Well, thank you all so much. Wow, what an amazing slideshow we were just treated to, and all of your thoughts and insights, and wow, gosh, I can't wait for everybody to hear this conversation. Just that part of it was so great. So yeah, so I just thank you, and I feel the same way, Peter. I feel like we could take this in a million different directions. So I'm going to trust you.
We have time. Yeah. There were a few things that came up that I thought were so interesting because they reflect what's happening right now. I was thinking of Cesar's point about depicting nature from the imagination. Now, clearly, that's what he wanted to do with that particular figure in the landscape. The first slide he showed us. But is that going to be, in the near term, a factor for everyone that they can't necessarily get out to nature because the way of getting there is blocked, you know, whether through airplanes are not flying, or I don't own a car, so I have to rent one, and that's not easy to do. I'm just making up those examples. A related question that obviously everyone has their way in on this one. With Zoe, I was wondering about fabrication. You can make all the clay models you want, but is it possible to take the next step in terms of, for example, casting, if the foundry is closed or if it's very difficult to be safe and distanced in such a setting? So I'm putting all that out there for anybody to tackle.
Right now I am trying to set up a kiln at my house, and that's been difficult just because they require a really high amperage. And so my short-term solution is honestly to unplug my dryer and then plug my kiln into the dryer outlet, and and it's not ideal, and it's a really small kiln. It's a smaller than normal kiln that can go off of a 30 amp. I think normally they are on 50 amp circuits, and so I can only produce smaller clay pieces, and I'm having to go back to molding and casting, which is workable where I am. It's just not my preferred process now that I've started doing the ceramic work. And then as far as I know right now, the foundries I've contacted are not operating. So I'm hoping that they will be in the near future.
Great. Thank you. Cesar.
For me, talking about that point that you were interested about, first of all, let me just say that it has been an intense isolation that I haven't encountered before. And although it allows me to examine these important and external aspects of contemplation, beauty, and awe, it is during these times that as part of a society, we are put on a quest to find this tricky word, constellation, and to define what means to have an essential harmony between common sense and the inspiration. Now, common sense, let me just try to focus that idea. I'm talking about common sense because normally what we would do is just go outside and do a bunch of studies and sketches, and then bring those to the studio and working whatever you're working on. In this case, in my case, working on those paintings. But it is also very important that to have in mind that at all times, sources of inspiration remain with us. And I'm talking about all master paintings. We can also focus on that, trying to understand that, make master copies of it. And then even if you just have a chance once in a week or once in 2 weeks, I don't know. I don't know how difficult it is for everybody else. For me, right now, I'm currently living in Mexico City. I wasn't born here, so I haven't seen my family, which I miss. But it's also a little bit tricky to go to the forest and to go to the wild nature that I love. So I have to stick to a specific schedule. And this is a mental schedule, not like work on one thing and next to the other. No, I'm talking about like to be very patient and be very organized with my own discipline and with what I want. That means to get things done. And it involves obviously certain methodology, a persistent will, and focus on tangible goals. So I understand that going through these situations will give us the hardest challenge, especially for people who work from life, who love to work from life. It is very difficult, and you gotta do what you gotta do. Sometimes you just have to create some different ways to meditate and to avoid distractions to work in something specific. So that's what I do, these imaginative scenarios. It doesn't mean that those are right, not at all. If anything, they could be really bad at describing something physical in nature. But that's how you, well, at least that's how I meditate, thoroughly seeking for this serenity that I'm trying to achieve, and to be attentive to everything surrounding my life and others. In this case, I mentioned that I am working directly from life with a model, two models actually. So I don't see them all the week. I mean, it's just once or twice a week. And every time I create this safe environment for them so they feel safe and they can work. And also I'm at a certain distance that it's not very good often. I mean, I'm trying to be further from them, but or away to just make them feel good. Because to me, when I'm working with a model, it's most important thing just to make them feel good. It doesn't matter about how I feel. I'm just gonna be behind my easel. But without going much further with that, I think I want to say that one of the successes that I can count for me in being under this self-isolation is that that times like these not only consist of moments of solitude, but practically my whole professional life will consist on that, because we always are, most of the time, are alone in our studios. So it's great to meditate about that. And I think I have been more persistent, and I have recognized the benefit of this gift that is given to me, that I can actually have that place to work in. And I have people to trust in my work and in myself to come here, to risk their own health, to come to the studio and pose for me. So it is an instantly fact that evokes a callback to experience the nature, or how fragile beings we all are. And so I appreciate the observation from direct or indirect nature, which it's related to creating some sort of imaginative situation. But yeah, more or less
it's great that you have these models accessible. I mean, that's really very special. That leads me to wonder, with Betty, the workshops that you were touching upon, are those not happening right now? In other words, is July going to be the first that you think will actually happen this season?
Yeah, we've had to move a few things to online classes, and what works and what doesn't work is really interesting. We had a class, I think it's 2 more to go, on writing your memoir. Obviously, it's for people who have deep things that they need to put down on paper. That's worked great. In fact, I think people actually say more during these meetings, online meetings, than they would in the classroom. They share a lot of stuff. It's very interesting. It's harder with studio work. You know, like bark drawing definitely needs to be a studio class. So what we did was we converted, we were given permission to convert some grant money into an online class, and we got in touch with Sandra Sanchez, who taught a self-portrait drawing class. Now that is really interesting. It actually went really well. Yeah, it went really well. Because you have a mirror set up, and you have your easel, and then you have your camera, and then you have this other camera on your artwork. Right. So the setup was, it's a little bit of adjusting at the very beginning, but it went great because we got new students as well as students who've been with us for a while. So it was a real nice combination class, and we got some kudos on that one. Our first class is actually at the end of July. It's a workshop with Dennis Sheehan. It's plein air outside. So I have my fingers and toes crossed on that one. The Katie Engberg workshop at the end of July, I think, is the one that I think you're thinking of. And she's fantastic. And by that time, I think we should be back in the studio okay.
Good. So here's a question for all of you, and in particular for Betty, I suppose, given her engagement in workshop scheduling. Do you feel that when all this is over, there will be more interest by various people in some, not all, online offerings? But do you think people's eyes have been opened to the efficiency of some kinds of topics being taught online, not just only in person? You mentioned self-portraits, and that's a very interesting way to go. What do you all think? I mean, I personally hope for in-person all the time, but I recognize that the online thing has its own benefits. There are lots of people who can't get to you physically anyway because they live in another state, etc.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's huge. I think that at least for art is one of the best things that would come out of this is just improved accessibility for more people, which is really exciting. I think the kind of skill-based learning that is easy to access in bigger cities is a lot harder to find outside of those. And there's people who are interested, I think, all over the country, but just don't know where to go for that kind of education. And so if you don't have to go anywhere, then I think there's going to be a big upsurge in people who are invested in that kind of learning.
Great. Good for our field.
Yes. I also think that what works best online is when the artist is demoing. You don't get too much to see what the other students are doing, which is the value of the studio work, is when your ears are always open to what the instructor is saying to other students, and you pick up on that stuff, and then you go over to their easel and see what's going on. You don't get that with online classes. Whereas during the demo, you're actually closer to what the instructor is showing than even if you were in the classroom, because you're standing in a group around the instructor, right? So you're actually right there on top of it with the camera.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I also believe that it's a curious thing, just to have this accessibility to watch an artist or different aspects of learning a method in art. And it is a little bit funny for me because almost 2 weeks ago, I just taught my first class online, and it was something completely new. Obviously, it has a lot of good things about it, like Betty just said, like this chance for the students to see what the artist is working on, and at the same time to listen in all the insights and all the procedures that we normally have to take to create an image. But also, I think, and I was able to see how happy everybody was, like just trying to go away from these complications to just to be in touch with people, and at least to learn something that they like. This is very good for those situations. Also, I can have my doubts about the ways people can actually learn from that, because it's not that easy. I mean, when you are looking at a screen, you might get everything what you're looking at, but that sensibility sometimes gets lost a little bit. because it's not a personal touch. So it often makes me think and wonder, okay, so if the coming future is going to be more like this, what can I do to make even people more comfortable, and also to remain with their eyes open to do things, not only by helping us, because it's actually helping us as artists to keep producing, but also for them to keep learning. But the tangibility, I think I have, I'm repeating this word because I mentioned it before, but it's very important to be in touch with that, to what it's truthful, to what it means more than just picture. Yeah. So it's also interesting because we have, as the artist who is doing the demo, we have to leave our vague idiosyncrasies sometimes behind, because we can get lost when we are talking, or when we are describing some specific method, which is funny. I mean, I'm not saying that we have to stop doing that. I think, I encourage actually to everyone else to keep doing that. But it's just like, be very focused on what you are telling, what are your thoughts about it, and also to just be organized, because this is more than just an activity for me and for all of us that we are present here, and a lot of people. This is something like a philosophy, and it's like an idealistic thought, but it's also very specific, and I think it's going to help a lot of these communities to get stronger. If anything, at least for the academic communities, which are the ones that I'm more involved with, I think those experiences that we have had are making us stronger with our wills, or like I said, with our philosophies to work from life, for example.
So Katie, if I can ask you about Grand Central, I mean, the idea of being one of the leaders in the field, I mean, it was one of the earliest of its kind. In terms of online, what's the feeling? I mean, what is the plan? Obviously, we're all beginning to think about the future now and new ways of being normal.
Right. Yeah, it has been a really interesting journey for us that I've kind of, even though I have no official role in admin, I've found myself in the middle because it's an all hands on deck situation right now. And gosh, our administration team has just crushed it in this crazy time. We had, it takes 3 months to plan the summer workshops, and our core program is a whole nother, organic organism of its own that has taken on its lifestyle and the way that it does. So we had a week to take all this programming and figure out what to do with it. And we moved the core online. And then after the first week of quarantine, where we were trying to figure out what to do, moved the core online. A week later, moved all the part-time classes online, and now we're in the process of moving. Wow. Yeah, it's been, I can't even tell you. Yeah, seriously. Shout out to Joy Tomasco, who's basically single-handedly running.
A lot, yeah.
She has 3 computers in her apartment right now, and she's just like running Zoom all day. We call her mission control. But it's been fascinating because, one, the support from our community has been unbelievable. So many students, part-time students in our community have donated their tuitions to help teachers' salaries. All this stuff has been incredible. But to go back to the point of access that this has, moving things online has created, we have participants in the part-time classes from other countries.
Wow, exciting.
And there's, these people are saying, I followed GCA, and Cesar would relate to this, followed for years, and it's really hard to get that access if you can't travel to New York. especially if you live in another country, that's so much expense and time. So it's been really exciting to watch our community grow. It's been really difficult. There's a lot of, as Cesar was also saying, it's, you know, there is the tangibility of, because what we do is actually like a physical thing. So that's, you know, that's a downside, but it's wonderful to expand. And one of the things, and that we kind of touched on this last week, actually, in our conversation with Mario Robinson, was talking about the mentorships he started doing. And that is another aspect of the core community that we implemented, is every student has a mentor during this time.
Great.
And that's been one of, and I was lucky enough to get a mentee, even though I'm technically not a teacher, but I jumped in there. And it's like, I look forward to it every week. It's one of the most fun things. Great. So yeah, I'm really excited about that community building aspect of taking these small communities, even a place like Wethersfield, and how they're opening out this big. And I'm so excited that so many people are going to see this, and hopefully so many people are going to enter and just bring us all together in this difficult time.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so I think you all have put your finger on this in different ways, that this notion of there is opportunity in crisis. And so the question is, how do we keep some of that good and yet not lose sight of where we started and what we value most? And from my perspective, the adding of online content in the future, when we can sort of stabilize and figure out the funding model, is a great thing. As you say, it serves people far away. Also, maybe they'll come study with you in the summer or all year long if they get so hooked on it. That's all for the good. And as long as we don't lose that special core at the center of the mission, then we're all right. I feel like all of that is being figured out by each individual organization or artist, and that is time-consuming and stressful. There doesn't seem to be a roadmap for everybody. And part of that, I'm just going to guess, is that because our ateliers and academies very often live outside the National Association for Schools of Art and Design, because they are not accredited, because they have their own idiosyncratic history and way of doing things, there isn't a set of protocols sent out from headquarters at the beginning of a crisis. I don't mean that the university art departments have it all figured out either. Believe me, they don't. But there are systems in place. So this is double trouble. You know, you all at Wethersfield and Grand Central have found your way forward all these years, and now you're finding your way forward yet again in these extraordinary times. And we take our hat off to you. It's not easy, but hopefully some of this is going to accrue as a positive. In the short term, I want to ask about sales for everybody. Tell me about how things feel commercially for you. Let's start with Zoe, in terms of, you know, whether it's galleries or individual exhibitions, auctions, benefits, networks that you're in, like Artsy, you know, whatever it might be. How are things going economically for you and your colleagues?
I'm actually doing okay, which is really, I feel incredibly lucky. I'm working with UC Berkeley right now on a project for their environmental resource college. And they have a large revitalization that's going on for that campus. And so I'm doing work for that, which I'm really excited about. And then I'm also, I feel like this really ties into some of the stuff we were talking about earlier. I'm doing a residency with St. Gaudens National Historical Park, which is in Cornish, New Hampshire. So I'm obviously not there right now. So it's now a remote residency. And so I'm coordinating with the park officials and various people affiliated with the St. Gaudens Memorial, which is funding my residency, to figure out how to create content that's sort of taking the place of me being the on-site sculptor there. And so it's touching on a much smaller scale things that Katie was talking about with GCA. So I'll be teaching online classes via their organization. And part of the residency is just having an artist open studio. And so since I won't be there for that, I'll be live streaming just my work in my studio here and discussing that. And then there's some complications with that just because they're a federal organization. And so there's, accessibility requirements we need to make. So it's a lot of pre-planning so things can be captioned, and it's an interesting process. So I'm learning a lot right now.
Well, they're good people. You're in good hands, and I'm sure they're thrilled to be working with you. I really like those folks.
They're wonderful. They've been so
inspiration
kind.
St. Gaudens was.
Yeah.
So they're really wonderful park.
Will you get to go do any of it eventually?
I really hope so. The grounds look so beautiful.
I wanted to ask you about that because I was curious. I knew you were supposed to be in New Hampshire all summer.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that if things are clear enough that I'll be able to do, it's a 6-month residency, so I'll be able to do the final 3 months there if that works out. But we're sort of just playing it by ear right now and seeing how it goes.
Sure.
I hope you can get there.
Sorry?
I hope you can get there.
I do too. I do too. That would be great.
Yeah, just to see his work in person and, to be able to actually touch on the place would be really, really inspiring.
It's a great site. Always worth a visit up there, especially in the summer and the fall. Betty, you mentioned that Katie Engberg is selling well. Just one example of an instructor who's doing fine. I hope that's still true even during the pandemic. In general, does the Academy push the works of art of instructors out into the world commercially, or is that their own affair? I just want to make sure I understand. How does that work? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Somebody came into the room, so I had to mute myself. So we do like to hang the works of our instructors on our walls, and we've actually sold paintings off the walls, which is unbelievably fantastic.
Right.
And then we do have shows at least twice a year, but this we haven't done a competition like this one in 3 years, so we're really hoping to move it along. We'd love to get a gallery space. That's in the works.
Well, we're going to help as best we can at Fine Art Connoisseur to promote your event. It's fantastic, and it's coming at just the right time for people to enjoy.
Right.
Katie, how about you? You have an exhibition coming in Los Angeles, right?
I do, opening September 5th at Arcadia Contemporary. So hopefully the sales will be good. We'll see. I don't know. I've been working. I kind of, I downsized some of the works. I was going to do some larger pieces, and I still have some larger pieces, but in talking with Steve, the gallery owner, we decided that maybe, doing a few more on a smaller scale would be a better course of action at this time, which it's great for me. I mean, flowers scale down much easier than they scale up. So.
Well, he's a smart entrepreneur, so that's good advice, I'm sure.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, we'll look forward to that show. Now, Cesar, I was wondering, you mentioned that one of your largest works ever is underway. You said something like 4 by 6 feet. Did I hear you correctly? And if so, I mean, that's great because big can be so beautiful. What gives you this confidence, this optimism that will sell? In other words, I'm not saying it won't, but it's a risk for you because it's a lot of time, right? To make a large work. Tell me more about that. What's happening with you economically, commercially?
Well, fortunately, I'm okay. So that allows me to keep working all the time. I am practically every day of the week in the studio, working at least from 8 to 10 hours. So I'm just trying to be focused and to remain conscious with my decisions, and also striving for an ideal virtue of my own personal work. And that also involves to value the orientation or also the message at the same as different ways of performing shows or exhibitions to show my work, which I'm not close to it. I'm actually very happy to do something like that. And in terms of how to sell these paintings, I think not only with the help of social media and my webpage, and also the collectors that I have met before, because they all of them are great. They are actually helping me to show my work. It doesn't mean that they are trying to buy it, but they are trying to help me to just to make it to be outside for everyone to see. And that is wonderful, because it actually offers me the opportunity for my work, better said, to be seen by different and more people than before. So I think it's not going to be easy, of course. If anything, it's going to be one of the hardest things for us, because most of the times when we sell paintings or drawings or sculptures, any kind of discipline that we work in, it's through a gallery or through an exhibition, most of the time. I'm not saying that it's the only one. And I think that small part that we normally don't explode, we have to do it right now. And you know, one of the things that kept me thinking, well, at least the past 2 months, kept me thinking the same thing. It is that us as artists, we have to engage with a reality thinking that is perhaps going to change. And I'm not saying that it was before, but if it wasn't, now to be more humanistic, or to have a humanistic point of view. And that is going to change perspective, the perspective of spectators. For good, I hope. Because we are holding on to a strong commitment and to probably one of the biggest challenges of our lives. But it's exactly perhaps what we need to even show others how important ideally and philosophically is to appreciate this kind of work.
Yeah, hear, hear. Absolutely. I have to say, I think that's something I'm hearing from more and more people, that the sheer trauma of this experience is reminding of us of our humanity, and that the art we're already making is in that zone already, and that it doesn't require any retooling. You just keep doing what you do, whether it's about human beings or nature. That's all part of what we're doing. And that maybe the ones who are going to struggle, perhaps, are the more cutting edge, who are disconnected from that through technological media, possibly through things that are experiential, and yet people can't get to them. It's a question mark. I mean, nobody has any answers on this, but I think your optimism is well placed. Yeah. That's great.
I thought it was really wonderful, but also really interesting to hear the connection between Zoe and Cesar, and how they both mentioned very early on in their slides that they're exploring these themes of human connection with nature. And then the show at Wethersfield is a sense of place. And in this time, it seems like a lot of people are kind of going outside to, you know, get some relief, and also creating stuff. Making art is a lot of people are kind of living our solitary artist lifestyle right now, and whether they're making bread or doing watercolor paintings. So it is really interesting to see these things develop, and yeah, it feels really special. I've also been thinking a lot about Monet's water lilies and how he painted them during World War I. Which was also at the same time as the Spanish flu pandemic. And yeah, I think about that a lot. Those giant water lily paintings, and when Cesar was talking about his biggest work and the optimism there, I think there's a real place for that in the arts during times like this. It feels right.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're not.
No, I think that you can't, I mean, not to make a blanket statement, but to have pieces that are like purely large or shock and awe or jarring, which I think a lot of contemporary art could lean towards, is really, I don't think people have the emotional capacity right now to process. And so I think having pieces like Monet's Water Lilies are the things that remind us of the better parts, like what César was saying, of humanity, of nature, of belonging, of beauty, like to say like higher moral, I don't know if higher moral values is the way you could put it, but
well, it's a higher plane anyway.
Yeah.
It's not so quotidian, not at all. Yeah. Betty?
I think it's also in a quarantine situation, you're able to examine things deeper and closer. Like for instance, Katie, that flower behind you, the datura, the I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see 6 of them over there, right? Yeah. I first came across that in Machu Picchu, and I later discovered that they're poisonous.
Yeah.
To humans, very poisonous. And I've come across this when I see this, like I kind of like chop it down because I have a dog that eats everything. So I mean, there's a wild version of it around here that's native, I guess. But I just love that you did it, these little things, but when you focus in on the details of these things, you examine them closely and you see some amazing things. And do you have a series, Night Blooming Cactus?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm going to send it to you because this flower blooms once a year at night and it's only open for 3 hours and it dies. It's unbelievable. The fragrance just fills the room.
No pressure, yeah. Katie.
Sounds great. Send it to me. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an offer. How about that?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Love it. Yeah.
I'm shocked to realize that we are actually up for our hour. So, I mean, we could go on all day, but we don't want to keep folks online forever. I think just, if I may, to offer a few additional rays of sunshine to our listeners. Basically, Streamline Publishing, which publishes Fine Art Connoisseur Magazine and also the weekly e-newsletter Fine Art Today, is offering extra features during the pandemic just to keep people stimulated. Every day at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, there is a 3-hour segment offered for free from one of our Streamline Art video programs. These are demos, often running to 7 hours in total. We give a 3-hour snippet. That's all available on Facebook if you search Streamline Art Video. That's all there every day. We're also giving away an amazing little landscape painting by Joseph McGurl, the famous painter. If you go to paintinggiveaway.com and register, you'll find out more about your chances there. Also, we are still planning. We're going forward with the Figurative Art Convention and Expo. That will occur in Baltimore, Maryland, October 29 through November 1st. That's a gathering of about 400 people watching demos by master artists. We're blowing it out, not only figurative, but also a few landscape, a few still life, a few sculpture demonstrations as well. So that will be really fun. It's a real jamboree. And finally, every Friday we have our virtual art gallery walk where we essentially present highlights of gallery activity going on around the country. So we're believers in galleries. We want them to succeed because they are an important piece of our ecosystem. No matter how online we go with social media and artsy and so on, we also want to see bricks and mortar galleries survive. That's what I've got in the way of specifics. If anyone wants to chime in with another website or link, we can hear from you now. No? Okay. Yes?
Just shortly,
please.
I was going to cite St. Gaudens again. I'll be teaching classes via their website. There's a link that will be coming soon to sign up for those, and we'll be also live streaming sculpting.
Great. Excellent. That's good. And of course, please visit Grand Central website, visit Wethersfield's website, all very worthy, definitely. And all of the artists here, the slides carry your web address. So thank you for that. Yeah, okay. Well, all I can say is thank you for your time. You've been great sports on this. I know we'd rather be together in person drinking cocktails, but it's great that we can share this from Mexico to California to Connecticut to New York. Kind of cool. That's Zoom for you.
It's very, very cool. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Of course.
Thank you.
Stay safe, all right?
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Gail, you're in
Okay.
charge. We're turning it over to you. I think we can sign off now. All right? Everybody, you can leave.